Well, hello, friends. It's Wednesday, and I want to thank you for joining me on the Daily Connection. We're now transitioning to the book of Ecclesiastes. Brother David got us into it just a little bit yesterday, and we're really going to dive in deep today. And I want to go on in to chapter 2 in just a very interesting section where Solomon talks about something that he committed himself to in a big way, I mean a major way. But once we get down to verses 10 and 11, we see him giving the result of that, and it's really not that great. It's like he's saying, hey, I've reached the pinnacle, and it's not all it's cracked up to be. So look with me in Ecclesiastes chapter 2. I want to start with verse 10. All that my eyes desired, I did not deny them. I did not refuse myself any pleasure, for I took pleasure in all my struggles. This was my reward for all my struggles. When I considered all that I had accomplished and what I had labored to achieve, I found everything to be futile and a pursuit of the wind. There was nothing to be gained under the sun. Wow, what a resolve! I mean, it sounds to me like he has no qualms about this at all. He said, "Hey, I examined everything carefully. I calculated, what I'd been able to gain. I calculated the cost of what it took to get these things, and I basically came to the conclusion that it's all futile. There was nothing to be gained under the sun." Now, let's summarize what he's talking about here. You got to go back to verse 4 and following to see what he means when he says, I had amassed all this, I had achieved all this. What does that look like exactly? Let's quantify it. He says, I increased my achievements. He says, I built houses, planted vineyards for myself, made gardens, parks for myself, planted every kind of fruit tree in them. So there's the achievements. I constructed reservoirs for myself, from which is to irrigate a grove of flourishing trees. So just those three verses alone, 4, 5, and 6, we see his achievements listed out. Great building, great feats of construction, great feats of agriculture, various things that in that context would have been prized and praised. He did these. These were achievements, he says. Then in verse 7, I acquired male and female servants and had slaves who were born in my house. I also owned livestock, large herds and flocks, more than all who were before me in Jerusalem. I also amassed silver and gold for myself and the treasure of kings and provinces. I gathered male and female singers for myself and many concubines, the delight of men. So now we shift from his achievements, things that he built, accomplishments in terms of feats of construction. Now we're talking about acquisitions. He acquired male and female servants. He even had those born in his house. So this is not just something that happened overnight. It's something that he said, I delight in over a long period of time. He talks about how he amassed great wealth in terms of agriculture. He says specifically livestock, large herds, large flocks, more than anybody. He talks about how he had gold, silver. Of course, we have pictures of that in our readings in Chronicles and Kings, right? Those things given in dedication to the temple. Enormous amounts and values of great, precious metals. He goes on to say, I male and female singers for myself, concubines. So even in the realm of entertainment, he had acquired enormous wealth of resource. And then he goes on to say this, I became great. I surpassed all who were before me in Jerusalem. My wisdom was with me, stayed with me. So he's saying that everything I did in my achievements, everything that I gained in my acquisitions, all of it contributed to make me greater than anybody before me. So if we're looking at this from a worldly perspective, from the world standard of measure, everything that Solomon needed to do to be famous, everything that Solomon needed to do to find satisfaction in life, everything that the world tells us to pursue, Solomon did that, and he was at the pinnacle of that. Yet despite all that, he says in verses 10 and 11, it's futile. There's nothing to gain under the sun. I didn't really benefit to any degree from any of this in the long term. And my goodness, if there was ever a warning, a dire warning, if there was ever a siren being sounded, if there was ever a flashing warning light that just blinded you, here it is, saying, hey, you need to understand something. Your pursuits in life, they need not be directed toward earthly accomplishments or achievements that are restricted to this world. There's nothing wrong with doing those things, but to pursue them just for the sake of pursuing them, Solomon says that's futile. He says, earthly gains, acquisitions. There's nothing wrong with having things. That's not what he's saying. But making them the primary purpose of your life and the ultimate pursuit of your life is futile. That's really what he's getting at here. He's saying that I made these things the ultimate pursuit, the ultimate source of satisfaction, and they left me wanting. And my goodness, if there's ever a warning to that, here it is. So let us take note, friends. Psalm is not saying here we should be lazy. He's not saying here we shouldn't desire things, that we shouldn't, put in a good day's work. Psalm is not saying here that we shouldn't, seek to acquire something. That's not what he's saying. What he is saying is this, is when we make them the primary drive and purpose of our life, we'll end up empty-handed, and our lives will feel empty and void. It will be futile. Later on he'll say, and you know this well, when all is considered, at the end of all things, fear God, keep his commandments. In other words, seek to live a life that is consistent with the will of God in obedience to the word of God. Loving God supremely and loving others sacrificially. That's the key to life. So let this be a warning to us. And let this be a warning that we can issue to others. That the wisest human that ever lived, just purely human, to ever live, and the one who was by many means one of the greatest men in the world in terms of what he was able to accomplish, architecturally, construction projects, in terms of gathering together wealth of all different sorts. The greatest human ever said it was all futile. It was all pursuit of the wind, because it ultimately left him feeling empty and void. And let's not get caught up in the rat race. Let's not get caught up in the pursuit of the things of this world. Instead, let's make it our primary purpose, our priority, to love God supremely, and love others sacrificially. And in doing that, we have the promise that where we go, and whatever our endeavors may be that take us there, we have one primary purpose, and that's to live sent.